Getting ready to step into your career era? Set yourself apart with Adobe Creative Cloud Pro for students. Hone your skills with apps like Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere Pro, and more, powered with the latest in creative AI. Students save over 55% so you can build a portfolio you're proud of. Launch your future with Adobe Creative Cloud Pro for students. Visit adobe.com/students to learn more.
When I wake up, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who wakes up next to you. When I go out, yeah, I know I'm gonna be the man who goes along with you. If I get drunk.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome back to another episode of the Sooner Nation podcast. Man, gosh, there's just a different feel in the air right now, right? I mean, if you're around Norman, if you're around the stadium, if you're around the program, if you're around the Sooner Nation, you just know it feels good. You watched Oklahoma take down Michigan last Saturday night. You know exactly what I'm talking about here. This wasn't just a big win on the scoreboard. This was a pivot point. It was a night that showed us that Oklahoma, it's not just about surviving in the SEC. There's starting to be some pace setters. And, I mean, at the center of all of this, I think there's two huge storylines. One is on the field, one is off of it, but both point towards the future of this program. Something that we talked about after the game extensively, both here on the podcast as well as, you know, at the website, heartland-sports.com. You know, this was John Mateer's moment. The transfer quarterback who's been handed the keys to this offense. He showed poise, he showed toughness, you know, and there's been no short of comparisons in the days afterwards to some of the great Oklahoma quarterbacks of the past. But Mateer, I think what sets him aside, I think what makes him different is that he kind of has a style that's built for the SEC. Not saying Baker Mayfield didn't, or Kyler Murray. We know Jalen Hurts succeeded in this league, but we saw those guys play Big 12 football. And we know there's an absolute difference between Big 12 football and SEC football. And Oklahoma's no longer playing Big 12 football. And they did not have SEC caliber quarterback play last year. But 2 games in, Mateer is not just putting up numbers through this. I mean, the stats are incredible. But he's bringing a new identity to this program. You now talk about Oklahoma football and you talk about efficiency. You talk about balance. That's something that's been missing. And how about this? Leadership in crunch time. When's the last time we talked about a quarterback that gave Oklahoma leadership in crunch time? But against Michigan, man, that's I got to keep coming back to it. You know, steady execution under pressure. That 12-play opening drive, there was so much pressure there because you got the ball first. You got to make a statement. And then that drive in the fourth quarter. So you got 2 rushing scores when Oklahoma's offense needed it the most. And then again, that fourth quarter clock killing drive that sealed the win. And that's what great quarterbacks do. And that's the type of thing that changes seasons. But that's just half of the story when you're talking about what happened in Norman on last Saturday night. Because while John Mateer was writing his own chapter under the lights, Oklahoma was also laying the foundation for the years to come. He had over 70 recruits that are on campus for that game. Think about that. Just think about that sheer number, 70. 70 future stars seeing the stadium lit up and seeing that atmosphere, feeling that energy. 70 recruits watching a top 15 opponent get outplayed. Then less than 72 hours later, Oklahoma got its first payoff. You got the verbal commitment of 4-star wide receiver Demare Dezeurn. Probably didn't pronounce it right, but we'll get there. He's a kid out of California, one of the fastest playmakers in the country. Turned down offers from UCLA and Miami to come to Oklahoma. I mean, and again, that's one of those things where you say it's not just a win, it's a statement. And here's the ripple effect. Recruiting insiders are already predicting that 4-star quarterback Peyton Houston also is about to make a commitment. And he's pretty much the Oklahoma's top target for 2027. He was in Norman. He saw the Mateer show. And man, you better believe he was impressed. So there's some other names out there. 4-star cornerback Mikhail McCreary, same story. The momentum that started Saturday night it's just carried this program in one of the best recruiting classes in years. I mean, that's what we're looking at the potential of here. So here's where I land on all of this. Oklahoma wasn't just winning games. They're winning the future. They found a quarterback in They found a quarterback in Mateer who looks like that dude. That guy who can bridge the Big 12 pass with the SEC future that is Oklahoma football. And at the same time, they're stacking up elite talent who want to be a part of this journey with them. And that's how you build something that lasts. So here over the next 20-ish minutes, we're going to kind of dive in more of both of these threads, if you will. Mateer's rise, the Michigan win, and how that night might be remembered as a turning point for recruiting battles that shape the next decade, the next wave of Oklahoma football players. So thanks for hanging out with us. This is the Sooner Nation podcast. Do us a huge favor. Make sure you hit that subscribe button wherever you're picking us up. And we're just thanking you. I can't talk today, but we're thankful that you're here with us.
Adobe Acrobat Studio, so brand new. Show me all the things PDFs can do. Do your work with ease and speed. PDF Spaces is all you need. Do hours of research in an instant with key insights from an AI assistant. Pick a template with a click. Now your prezzo looks super slick. Close that deal? Yeah, you won. Do that, doing that, did that, done. Now you can do that with Acrobat. Now you can do that with the all-new Acrobat. It's time to do your best work with the all-new Adobe Acrobat Studio.
So there's no way you didn't catch Oklahoma in prime time on Saturday night. I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, if you're looking at our website, you were tuned in, whether you're there in the stadium or whether you're on the television, you were there, right? And you know that this just wasn't another game. We've talked about it in so many different aspects. I believe, and I've said it multiple times, I believe that this was the moment Oklahoma football flipped the script on what the future could look like with the Sooners in the SEC. And again, I've said it. At the heart of everything was one man. It was John Mateer. But for the sake of the conversation, let's rewind for just a moment. You know, we're 2 games into the season. And Oklahoma's back to, undefeated, ranked near the top 10. And most importantly, you get that feeling like something different's happening. Something's different with this team. And clearly, Mateer's not just another quarterback. He's not just a guy out there padding stats. As we kind of hinted to in the opening segment, he's a guy that's redefining that position here in Norman. And I think the stats tell part of the story here, right? So let's look at some numbers. They're impressive. I mean, they are. I mean, that's why Mateer's all over the internet this week. Through 2 games, John Mateer has thrown for 662 yards. As we've already talked about, and you've heard on other channels, other publication, that's the second most by a Sooner quarterback in the first 2 games of a career. Only Josh Heupel has more. He's completing 72% of his passes. He's averaged 331 yards per game, and he's accounting for 7 total touchdowns. Now, those are big numbers, but we're not talking about big numbers against 2 Illinois State type teams. There's a top 15 team in here on this opponent list that he's already taken down. And when you look at nationally, he's second in total offense. He's 6th in passing yardage per game. So he's putting up elite numbers to start the season. But what I'm seeing, it goes beyond the numbers. What I want to talk to you about, what I have talked to you about is beyond the numbers. It's the poise that he has. It's the grit that he shows. It's the kind of quarterback play that doesn't come around every season. I mean, it's not about highlight throws, although he's got them there. It's about steady execution and under pressure. And he delivered all of that under the lights in front of a national television audience on Saturday night. And the Michigan game absolutely was a defining statement. I mean, Michigan, we just said, it's not Illinois State times 2. I mean, it's not your ordinary non-conference opponent. I mean, it's not just a ranked opponent at that. I mean, we're talking about a team that's in recent years playoff contention, one of the nastiest defenses in the entire college football, 2 years removed from a national championship. This was a test. Now, people are going to, quote, dumb it down a little bit and tell you all the reasons why Oklahoma is not as good as they looked. And we even talked about it on the Sunday podcast that context matters. But this was a test. This was a true test. And all those reasons why they're saying that, Michigan wasn't this, Michigan wasn't that. Had Michigan won, you'd be saying they would be saying, well, Oklahoma, this is the same Brent Venables team, blah, 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 and it's just, it's one of those no-win situations. But this was a test, and look at what Mateer did. He opened the game with a 12-play, 75-yard drive and a touchdown to Deion Burks. Now, granted, Deion Burks did 90% of the work on that. But that opening drive, it wasn't flashy. It was balanced. And it was offense under control. He ended the night with 2 rushing touchdowns. The first of those came right before the half to push the lead to 14-0. And then the other one, I think, was probably the biggest touchdown of the night in the third quarter. That was a response to Michigan's only touchdown of the night. And I think it was that drive that gave Oklahoma control. But then you go late into the fourth quarter. The game's still within reach and Michigan's smelling maybe an opportunity. What did he do again? He delivered 16 plays, 78-yard drive that just ate the clock. And nothing really super spectacular on that in terms of plays. Just efficient third down conversion, smart management. And they set up a field goal, and that basically sealed everything. But that sequence tells you all we want to know about the difference between quarterbacks who rack up yardage and quarterbacks who just go out to win the big games. And I'm not saying John Mateer can't be both, because I think he is both. But there's a leadership factor here that kind of changes the team. Numbers are great. All right, that's what's going to get you in Heisman Trophy conversations. That's what's going to get you Conference Player of the Week awards. But what's more telling than numbers is what other people talk about. What do they say about you? How do they talk about you? Offensive coordinator Ben Arbuckle, he didn't mix his words. There's a lot of moments that he hasn't been, there's not a lot of moments that he hasn't been introduced to. Arbuckle went on to call him a special kid, really special. And that kind of praise tells you that this staff, they trust him. They trust him to thrive in chaos. They trust him to lead when things get tight. And in this gauntlet of the SEC, that trust in the quarterback position, it cannot be optional. It wasn't there last year, and we saw the result. You don't make it in this league without someone under center who can stand in adverse weather, hostile crowds, and physical defenses. And I know it's only 8 quarters of football, but so far John Mateer has proven that he can do all of that. And I think one of the things that I talked about, that comparison with Baker Mayfield, Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, that he's different because I think there's almost like a hybrid style of quarterback here with John Mateer. He doesn't he really doesn't fit exactly into the Baker Mayfield box or the Kyler Murray box. But what he does is he brings this hybrid style. He's efficient from the pocket. He's smart with his legs. He's calm under pressure. And man, he is strong. Probably the strongest quarterback Oklahoma's had under center since Jalen Hurts. And that's, I mean, I don't want to just kind of rail on the past, but man, you've had fireworks, offensive fireworks. But really, I mean, not a lot of toughness, right? I mean, you've got this flash of speed, this flash of ability, but not a lot of flash of toughness. And it takes special quarterbacks. It takes a guy like Baker Mayfield. It takes a guy like Jalen Hurts. And John Mateer brings this balanced identity. You know, there's offense when it's needed. Toughness, he'll run between the tackles just like a running back would do. And then that leadership, that poise, that calmness under fire. And all of that matters, I mean, in 2025. And here's the reason why. So this Michigan game, as we've talked about, it wasn't just about beating a ranked team. What it did was it allowed Oklahoma to prove that it can play SEC brand of football, controlling the game tempo, executing under pressure, trusting the quarterback there in crunch time. And that's been the missing ingredient since the Sooners joined this conference. Now, undoubtedly, there are tougher tests, maybe multiple tests that are going to be tougher than this. Alabama, LSU, Tennessee, Texas, South Carolina, Ole Miss. But here's the truth about this. Teams that can't quarterback properly, they get exposed fast in this conference. That happened to Oklahoma in 2024. But Mateer looks like the guy that can change that narrative for the Sooners in 2025. So what's my opinion here? What am I trying to say? What I'm trying to tell you is this. Oklahoma hasn't just found its 2025 quarterback. Like I said earlier, they found the quarterback who bridges the Big 12 past with the SEC future. That blend of efficiency, toughness, leadership. And that's what this program's been waiting for. Not just to survive in the conference, but to lead it. And again, I realize we're only 2 weeks into the season, but this team has gone from a program searching for identity to one that looks like it kind of sets the pace there. And John Mateer's the reason. So let me leave you with this. There's a subtle shift that's happening at Oklahoma. It's not just about winning. It's about winning with toughness, winning with control, winning with confidence from the quarterback position. And if Mateer stays healthy, that's a big if because of the way he plays. But if he stays healthy and he keeps playing on the same level we've seen through the first 2 games of the season, I really think that 2025 could end up being the season that changes how this program is viewed, not just for this season, but as they continue to move forward in this conference.
Breathe deep. Imagine your legs more limber in Duluth Trading Double Flex Denim. Envision euphorically squatting for that can of suds, bending for your toolbox in a state of bliss, lunging for your laser level on a whole new level. Relax and allow the flex to fill you with ability. Find your inner flex in Double Flex Denim only at Duluth Trading.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Got a car to sell but no time to waste? Hop on to Carvana.com to get a real offer for your car in seconds. All you have to do is enter your license plate, answer a few quick questions, and if you accept the offer, Carvana will pay you as soon as you hand the keys over. They even offer same-day pickup in many cities. Save your time, score some cash, and sell your car the convenient way to
Carvana.
Pickup times vary. Fees may apply.
So what happens when a primetime win meets primetime recruiting? That's another thing that we saw on Saturday night with Oklahoma. It wasn't just playing a marquee game. The Sooners weren't. They were, well, like we said earlier, they were hosting a marquee weekend. Over 70 high school recruits were invited to be a part of that game as a big recruiting push. Imagine being in their shoes, right? And again, I think this is probably an overlooked factor with this game. Not only was it a top 25 matchup, but it was the only top 25 matchup of the weekend. So when you're trying to get a recruit to come, and they've got competition, you're getting recruited by Texas, San Jose State, you're getting recruited by whoever is out there. Do you want to go watch that game, Texas, San Jose State, or do you want to watch the game that everybody in the country is tuning into, primetime evening matchup? And they picked Oklahoma. They picked Norman. They picked 80,000 fans just going crazy. And they got to experience that whole thing. And there's a difference. If you've been there, maybe you can even tell on TV. There is a difference between Norman, Oklahoma during the day, as far as football games going, and games at Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium at night. You got the scoreboard flashing. You got the TV lights all around. It was a showcase for Oklahoma. And kudos to this group of coaches and recruiting coordinators and everything for putting this together to make it what it was. And it worked. Less than 72 hours after that win, Oklahoma landed their first pledge of the 2027 class from the weekend. First pledge from the weekend. They already got one in that class. But 4-star receiver, Demare Dezeurn, Pacific Palisades, California, he chose Oklahoma over UCLA and Miami. And those were two programs that had some serious momentum going into the fall. So it's no small feat to do something like this, especially when you're new to the SEC footprint. And here's why he matters. He's only 5'11", 170 pounds, but man, he is explosive. We always deal in comparisons, and so you got to look at a guy like Hollywood Brown, that elite speed. He was what you would call the true game-breaking type receiver. Greg Biggins from 24/7 Sports put it this way: he hits top-end speed after just a few strides. A true game breaker every time he touches the football. And it's not just talk. Through two games, high school games this fall, Dezeurn has caught 16 passes for 241 yards and 5 touchdowns. One of those games saw him go off for 194 yards and 4 touchdowns, 4 scores. That kind of production, that's what you want. That's something you bring into your program. That's the plant and grow type of potential, so to speak. That's the guy you get him in the weight room, you get more meat on his frame. And he's got, can you imagine what he could do on special teams? His time in the 100-meter dash is just under 10.4. And so that tells you, it's not just speed. It's you put him in space and he's lethal. But there's even more, I think, on a personal note for him. There's a little bit more behind that recruiting commitment. Maybe Pacific Palisades sounded familiar to you. I've never heard that name before. Well, it's because of the January fire just this year. It devastated that community, and it devastated the high school. And so they're meeting, I think it's in the old Sears building or something like that. That's where they've relocated, where they're trying to rebuild the high school. And so that's where he's from. And so he's a star in a community that's rebuilding, at a high school that's rebuilding. And so he's kind of carrying some community hopes on his shoulders. And now he's going to be carrying the Sooner flag as well. And so landing a player of this caliber, Dezeurn, it doesn't just add talent. It changes the perception. Once again, here we are talking about perception. This is something that opens doors. And it looks like talent is just about to start walking through. Elite talent. I mentioned earlier in the opening segment, Peyton Houston, the 4-star quarterback. He's next on Oklahoma's radar. He's, if not the top target, definitely one of the top targets. And he was there. It's his 7th. Think about that. 7th unofficial visit. You don't think this kid's interested in Oklahoma? 7 unofficial visits. And he watched quarterbacking magic, if you will, from Mateer. He watched an SEC Offensive Player of the Week type performance. And again, not just a show, it was a showcase. 4-star cornerback Mikhail McCreary, another top-tier target. He came away impressed. He saw what Venables' defense does. He saw it in action. He saw a true freshman corner starting against the number 15 team in the nation. And there's nothing yet official here. But, I mean, the guys that follow recruiting way closer than I do, they say OU's leading in him. So if Houston and McCreary follow Dezeurn's lead, the Sooners could be looking at one of the most accomplished stars, one of the most accomplished collection for that 2027 class to kind of kick it off. You would have 3 guys already in there that would immediately make this a top 10 class. And when we back out a little bit and kind of zoom out like we like to do here on the Sooner Nation podcast, the goal of last season was to try to show that Oklahoma belongs and they can make their way in this conference. They didn't live up to the standard. No one's denying that. But now it's about building through recruits. Some of that's going to come through the transfer portal. Some of that's going to come through high school from the prep level. And over the last 2 weeks, Oklahoma's already jumped in the top 20 in recruiting rankings. According to, On3 Rivals, Oklahoma skipped over Ole Miss. So there's promise there. And you add, these 3 guys, if you put these 3 in the 2027 class, and you're talking about a recruiting boom that would just kind of skyrocket, And Venables has always said that recruiting is going to be the lifeblood of this program. And now, the blood's pumping. It's pumping through new channels. And Oklahoma's finally, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, but I think they're there offensively as well. They're kind of in a place now where they don't have to build rosters anymore. That's what he had to do for 3 years. But now it's moving over to build the identity. So sure, yeah, these last few days, they're about recruiting headlines, but let's not forget, there's bigger than just stats. There's stories. It's about a young man stepping up for his community. It's about recruits visiting Norman, imagining themselves, those guys being the ones to walk out into Owen Field wearing the crimson and cream. It's about coaches watching and knowing, the campus is more than just a destination. It's a vision. So in the grand scheme of things, a fantastic weekend for Oklahoma football all around. It wasn't just a win over a top 15 program. It was a pivot point for national perception as far as the 2025 season goes. A pivot point for the recruiting show, not just for 2027, but there'll be 2026 kids that jump in here. It's a moment where you pivot from trying to catch up with the other teams in your conference to actually being the ones who set the pace. And that's where Oklahoma's heading. It's not just wins about, it's not just wins about, I'm losing my ability to talk again. It's not just wins on the field. They're wins that set the tone, that set the future of this program. And now you've got to carry that momentum to Temple this weekend. Because one bad weekend just crumbles everything. And so you gotta watch out for that hangover. You gotta watch out for that lull. You gotta watch out for that moment where you kind of take a breath and try to relax. They were supposed to do that Saturday night into Sunday morning, but now it's game week again. And I know it's just Temple, but this is a huge game for Oklahoma. Because if you go up there and you win by a field goal, heaven forbid you lose that game, that all momentum stops. Everybody is paying attention to Oklahoma right now, which means they're going to at least look at that scoreboard. They're going to look at that box score. If they're not watching the game early kickoff, if they're not watching it, they're going to check in on it. And you've got to impress. You have to impress to keep that perception going. Because right now, everyone's trying to figure out a way to discredit this win for the University of Oklahoma. They're going to talk about how Michigan's in disarray. They're going to talk about the freshman quarterback. They're going to talk about this and that and that. And if you go to Temple and you fall, you stumble, they're going to say, "See, told you." You got to go to Temple, and you got to look impressive. And that's the challenge. That's what lies ahead for the University of Oklahoma. So we're going to turn our attention as we go throughout the rest of the week, both on the website and here on the podcast, going to turn our attention towards the Temple Owls. What does that game mean for Oklahoma? What does it mean for this season? We got more of that coming up in the next episodes. Thanks again for hanging out with us. Make sure to check us out online, heartland-sports.com. Find us on Facebook, Heartland Sports, on Instagram, Heartland Sports. Have a great day, everybody. It's almost mid of the week. See you soon. I'm gonna be the man who's